wrong, wrong, wrong. I heard you taking your blows. You got it wrong, so let it go. Never let everybody know. You're wrong, 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 wrong.
Dan, DK Metcalf measured with 1.6 body fat at the 2019 Combine.
Get out of here. Good God, he eats only Skittles. Skittles and coffee.
I'll never understand how that guy looks that way with his diet. I really, truly never will.
I didn't think that was possible.
Are you talking about how Yeti hit that note on Baby?
Baby!
It's incredible. By the way, if you're a fan of Yeti Blanc, as we are, from his work on the Greg Cody Show featuring Greg Cody. And all the parody songs that he does here, he actually made an original song with our own Jessica Smetana. And he'd been working on this for quite some time, and we got the Super Bowl matchup that we needed because it's a song about Travis Kelce in the style of Taylor Swift. Kudos to Jessica for getting her voice where it needs to be. This is going to formally release as a song you can download on your streaming services.
Tomorrow.
This is dropping tomorrow. I'm going to play a little snippet
A tease
for this original Yeti Jess track.
I believe Jessica, Roy, and Greg Cody think they have the best singing voices on this show. I'm guessing that Jeremy probably would offer something in the way of an objection.
Well, I know it's me. They might think it. I know it.
Okay.
Jessica is so talented.
She really
I'm
is.
so proud of her. I miss her.
Have you heard the whole song, Mike? I have not heard the whole song.
I have, and it really is in the style of Taylor Swift without biting a Taylor Swift song. And the vocal talents, again, of Yeti and Jess are truly astonishing for sports media.
I will get to Taylor Swift in a second, but I want to tell the audience that in the next segment, what you're going to get is Billy Corgan from Because Miami is doing a podcast series that is a companion to the Griselda Netflix miniseries starring Sofia Vergara. And in studio here will be Griselda's son, youngest son, with Billy Corgan to talk about what is accurate and what's not accurate about this very polarizing Netflix series, because a lot of people love it and a lot of people think it is terrible, but the authorities on this are the two people who are going to be here shortly, because Billy Corgan of Cocaine Cowboys has told the Griselda story. She was introduced to America through Billy Corgan's Cocaine Cowboys series, and I should say of Griselda that Pablo Escobar is quoted at the beginning of that Netflix series as saying, "There's only one man I've ever feared, it's Griselda Blanco." That's Pablo Escobar's quote, because she was a drug kingpin who ran, Medellin and Miami. And have any of you seen this? Because I've seen the first 10 minutes and I checked out after the first 10 minutes.
So you're in the camp that says it's not good?
Well, in the first 10 minutes, I fell asleep. This is not.
That's pretty
age.
damning.
This is not meant to. Well, it's
How
not.
late was it? That happens to me all the time,
No.
because my peak time to watch shit is after 11, and then I fall asleep.
It's not a critique. At this point, my life has gotten very stressful away from here, and so I can fall asleep on anything. It's not. Late at night, I can fall asleep.
Yeah. Well, I haven't seen an online discourse on whether something is good or bad around a show since probably it hasn't been that long ago. The Dahmer show. I think it was pretty polarizing, and people felt pretty strongly one way or another. And I ended up liking the Dahmer show. I think the Griselda thing is kind of like how I aborted on the Seth Wickersham Patriots book. I've seen that before. I know the story. And for me, Cocaine Cowboys is pretty perfect. So I don't know if I want to see it in a teleplay.
What Billy Corgan is doing, I assure you, will be great. It's going to be next week. They've been using our studios to do some of this stuff, and I know the podcast accompaniment is going to be rich and interesting. And again, it's with her son, who was obviously more intimate with the details than most of us. So that's going to be in a segment. But before we get to that, I wanted to talk about the one place I will allow everyone to hate Taylor Swift, and it's the only place I'll allow it. There's only one place. If you, like Chris Cody, are a Dolphin fan and have been suffering for 25 years, Swifties, you don't get to be in the Super Bowl after 3 months paying attention to the sport.
Yeah, this is Vegas Golden Knights
Like
all
this,
over again.
this is
But they
not,
know ball, Dan.
No, but you don't get to just get here and then your guy is catching all the touchdowns and you're in the Super Bowl. That's not the way this works. And if your righteous hatred comes from football purity, that you're not protecting the delicate sensibilities of white people who somehow are now against Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce, and football. Like that one I did not have happening. I did not. Like that's a lot of Caucasian there that you're coming out against because Taylor Swift is a powerful woman and she's asked everyone to vote.
I mean, it's a weird pseudo pre-boycott because she hasn't actually done the thing that they're accusing her of eventually doing.
Try dating a jet.
Yeah, put it on the poll, please, Juju, at Le Batard Show. Hey, Taylor Swift, you want to show me something? Date a jet. The thing that I wanted to say about Taylor Swift, though, that was simply delightful yesterday is all of the Swifties who discovered Colin Cowherd and made him a silver fox because they don't remember when he was an orange-haired fox that one day that he mistakenly painted his hair orange. Colin Cowherd became...
It wasn't mistakenly. It was with intention.
Colin Cowherd pointed out something succinctly, which is that lonely men hate her. And the Swifties gobbled it up.
They absolutely loved every second of it. My TikTok yesterday was all Colin Cowherd, but not because of the sports algorithm, because of the Taylor Swift algorithm, because Swifties have fallen in love with Colin Cowherd to the point where they're like oddly sexualizing him too, which is a whole other element of this.
Well,
but the take was great.
Well, that's also probably what's missing from our show, sex appeal.
He gave his bona fides. He's like, I have a wife, a couple daughters.
I have tweets here from Swifties. I am not saying these things. These are what they have said about Colin Cowherd.
But remember, you're
Quote,
saying it right now, and the internet lives forever.
Yeah, I'm so excited about this. Quote, I love this man and I have to have him. What's his at? I will marry him right now on God. Oh, sir, you ate. This man right here ate. I taught you what that meant, Dan. So.
He got a lot of U8, yes.
Yeah. What a king. He spilled. No lies detected. He's hot. Silver daddy.
Damn it. I mean, did they not see his Lamar Jackson take from last week? He's a volume shooter, no pun intended, and it's finally worked out for him. Dan, why can't you get chewed up by an algorithm that isn't aliens?
He might swing and miss sometimes, but boy, when he connects, he can still knock it out of the park. Colin Cowherd.
The Swifties, that was your punctuation?
Yeah, it was.
What were you introducing?
Colin Cowherd,
him?
everybody.
Colin Cowherd.
Like what, a Vegas act? Like what are you doing?
Yeah, I'm just getting ready for next
Colin-
week, Dan.
Colin Cowherd,
I'm
ladies
just
and
getting
gentlemen.
ready.
Silver
The
Fox.
nominees for Best Sound Engineering.
I don't want to spill too much from what it is that we have planned for next week, but you just broke my heart when you came in and you said we missed out on somebody that we were very close to getting in Vegas. Can I reveal that, or do I have to?
I think
we've
we
got
have-
a number of guests that we're excited about, but there was one that we were going to have, and you just got done telling me that it couldn't happen.
Taylor
Oprah.
Swift. Taylor
What?
Swift. Yeah, we tried our best. We could not get Taylor Swift. Busy. Actually ends up being that she's in Asia. Otherwise, she would have done it. Then we pivoted to Wayne Newton, and we're trying, I think, one more Hail Mary to get Wayne Newton. What we want for next week's shows is to look completely different. And you do that with Wayne Newton.
A lot of people are talking about the new Netflix series. I saw that it debuted #1, Griselda. It's a limited series, and Sofia Vergara is the so-called godmother of cocaine. Now, in Billy Corben, who does Because Miami on Fridays with us, we have sort of the foremost authority in documentary form. You can go to cocainecowboys.com on what this story really is. And he's brought in a guest today to talk to us about what's true and what's not true about the rendering of Griselda, who would have more information on this than most. But before we get started with Michael Corleone Blanco, the youngest son of Griselda Blanco, Billy, can you tell people what it is that you're doing, where it is they can find it, because you're doing accompanying content to this series that's probably a little more accurate than the dramatic rendering of this series.
Yeah, I mean, I may be the authority on the documentary side of things, but the authority on the real thing is obviously the man who lived it, Michael Corleone Blanco, as you said, Griselda's youngest son. And when we knew this was in the hopper for some years, and late last year, Michael and I started talking about, well, we have no idea what this is going to look like or what it's going to be. We knew it was going to be 6 hours. He said, why don't we get together and do a podcast called The Real Griselda, where we do one-to-one. We do one episode for every episode of the Netflix series and talk about what they got right, what they got wrong, how we feel about the show, but more importantly, what was actually going on in the story, in the real chronology, not in the kind of, like, I call it this gonzo cocaine cowboys fan fiction of the world of this Netflix series, which sometimes is fun, sometimes is absurd, and you said, yeah, let's do it. And what's been really interesting about, we're like right in the middle of production right now. It's going to launch Monday at cocainecowboys.com on our YouTube page. That'll redirect you there. But for someone who has been documenting this history for nearly 2 decades, with a particular focus on Griselda Blanco and her family, spending these hours recording this show with Michael, no one has been more surprised than I that there are more surprises in this story. There are more things that we don't know. And it's been a wild ride. It's been emotional.
To say the least.
It's been tense. It's been emotional. Yeah. We were recording the other day, and Michael got so tense, he got up and started pacing the room. At one point, he was so overcome, he had to get up and just leave the studio in the middle of the show. It's been pretty powerful and sometimes funny too. I mean, stories I've never heard before.
I kind of get along with this guy now. You know, like it's so full circle to me.
Didn't start that way, Dan.
My arch nemesis, Dan.
Is that right?
This
I don't know
right
the
here,
backstory, so you didn't like the
mother
way.
effer. Let me tell you, I would hunt for him down South Beach. Where you going? Come here. You owe me a check. Let's figure it out. Then they had a club, Bella Rose, and I think that's where we did the inauguration to that club after Cocaine Cowboys 2 premiered on Lincoln Road.
The Colony, that's right.
At the
You're right.
Colony.
Because you didn't like what he was unearthing about your...
No, because they called me from the private jet, one of their partners, and they just happened to be on the private jet, and he said I think it was Bruno. And he was working with...
Executive producer on Cocaine
Yeah, he was
Cowboys,
working with like an agent... A friend of mine that was trying to be my manager, this, and that. And I think they were coming from Puerto Rico or something with Ricky Martin. They called me from the jet, and they're like, I'm working a 9 to 5, by the way, trying to get my life together and be a regular, Miami citizen. I didn't want any problems. I was having my second kid. And they called me, and they're like, hey, what's up? Didn't you say you were going to start working a documentary? And I said, yeah, I'm going to start with my mother's friend. He was a gentleman at the time that had done some time, and he's the one that was showing me, look, we can really do this entertainment-wise.
Oh, so Billy's taking your story as you see it.
He said it, and then I'm like, yo, I'm doing it, and they're like, no, Billy Corbin, these guys from UM, Alfred Spellman, Dave, and their whole crew have this thing. They're almost done. They're wrapping it up, and I'm like, what? I need a check. Let's figure this out, but let me see what they can do, and if this works for us. But at the time, I saw him as a competing project. And he beat me to the punch. But you know what? Great minds think alike. And I'm glad that now we're together and this is like a full circle moment, because now I find myself, and I have found myself for the last couple of years actually admiring the whole crew, because I wouldn't be where I was today if I would have put assist and desist on that project, and if these men wouldn't have made a classic. Let's be honest. The full franchise, freaking classic.
Well, when they start there, though, do you end up getting disappointed by this depiction? I will tell the audience on Monday, cocainecowboys.com is where you should go to find a more accurate, I'm sure, rendering of this, but more generally.
The real Griselda.
More broadly on this, how did you feel? He says you're emotional. How did you feel how accurate the depiction has been from what you've witnessed?
I don't want to say far from it, but yes, to an extent. I mean, there's public record, there's urban myth, there's an original timeline, a real timeline that Cocaine Cowboys has followed, I followed, and now he knows more of that timeline and to fill in the holes. But how do I feel? That's a good question. I feel that it's not 100% accurate. It's far from accurate. And sometimes it's, I don't want to say like destroying kind of the legacy and the timeline or the actual authenticity of that timeline, and the fact that it takes away from the Blanco family legacy or my mother's legacy, because you should at least have enough respect to get it right.
Well, what'd they get wrong?
Gosh,
Well, I'll say this, that
I say a
so
lot.
Michael finally published his autobiography, the stories that he witnessed, that his brothers told him about, that his mother told him about. It's called My Mother, the Godmother. And again, I couldn't believe how much I didn't know, and how many blanks there were, even in our meticulously researched timeline over the first 3 Cocaine Cowboys documentaries. I'm still a little hung up that Bruno was on a private jet, by the way. I'm still having trouble getting it.
I had breakfast with him.
I should say for the record that Michael never paid for a drink at Bella Rose.
Not
either.
once. Me or any of my 10 bodyguards and entourage. Bottles on Cocaine Cowboys.
He was coming toward you with menace. There was threat implied.
No, not at all. I'm a very civilized individual. Plus, I had a tattoo parlor at South Beach. I was trying to change my way, but it's hard to take the fleas off an old dog. So I always had my goons around. At the time, I hadn't gone corporate. I was just learning the business of exclusive life rights and consultation. And it was right at the moment that I was brokering the deal for my mother's life rights and my life rights for a motion picture.
I will say, when Michael rolls up, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 deep,
as he has today,
but in your bar in Miami Beach,
it was 20, 30 deep.
By the way, look at his face. I mean, he looks like his mom. And we walk. You have Griselda Blanco's son, named Michael Corleone, no less. Walking up to have a conversation with you, there is a certain sense of menace or intimidation, whether it was intentional or not. I'm not gonna lie.
I wouldn't blame him for being mad about that, and I wouldn't blame him for not necessarily respecting the constructs of how it is that you get to the life story before he gets to the life story.
And I do want to say this, that about, shout out to Sofia Vergara for shouting out Cocaine Cowboys. She's very clear. If you read, at the very least, the New York Times feature about the Netflix series, the very beginning of that story is Sofia Vergara saying this begins in 2006 with me watching the Cocaine Cowboys documentary. So it's very clear that, without Michael's mother's story and without the amplification of that story through the Cocaine Cowboys documentaries, there would not be this Netflix series. And so I appreciate that. But I also, it's a kind of fantasy. It's almost a narco sci-fi kind of a story. Some of it, like I said, is a lot of fun, particularly the latter half.
But what are you guys doing that is making this different? Why should people go on Monday to find what it is that you're doing as you're getting a more accurate assessment of what this actually was, to be the son and the documenter of a woman who was obviously wildly cutthroat?
To an extent, because she wasn't a business that you had to understand when to be cutthroat and when to actually perform your labor like if you were the CEO of a company that was on the Forbes list. My mother was, don't get it wrong, a brilliant woman. She wasn't just a fool savage. She carried herself with respect, but she was highly intelligent. And to answer your question, what are we doing? I think it's the best of both worlds, because it's a lot of the public record, a lot of depositions, Rivy, the hard R&D that they put in for all the Cocaine Cowboys franchise, and I'm basically filling in the holes in every year of every decade. My book transcends 3, almost 4 decades. So a lot of what and basically he's a part of my book too, as well, because I speak about the South Beach days when you guys were doing the Cocaine Cowboys, how I was still in the streets. But I guess the beauty of this project is that we're telling it how it's supposed to be told, or at least you're getting it from me, and I'm alive to tell the tale. Very famous writer once said, life is not how you lived it, but how you remember you lived it, and that you lived to tell the tale. Garcia Marquez, Colombian man, said that.
Yeah, I understand why you would object to me saying wildly cutthroat, but I am remembering malls of my youth and the Miami Herald filled with bodies because this drug war took place in our streets.
Yeah, and now that I'm 45 years old, and don't get me wrong, I glorify the era to a certain extent. I am very conscious that there were horrible times, and I myself am a victim of sorts, and not of sorts. I buried 22 members of my family. You know, the people that you see with me right now, 3 of them are actually 2 of them are the actual males. Yesterday you saw me with my kids, and we're like 3, 4 people here and another 5 in Colombia. We're basically 8 men left. The rest are women from the Blanco clan. And in no shape or form do I want the public to think that I'm congratulating that era and all that. No. But I do need legal tender in the United States of America, and I knew I need to change my life, and that's what I did at that moment when they were doing their thing. So I got a mentor, and he taught me the business of consultation. Got the best life rights attorney in Culver City, Los Angeles. I had the same attorney that was on the same floor with their attorneys, so she couldn't represent me a second time because it was a conflict of interest.
I don't remember that.
But her contract got me and got my mother and myself another 3 contracts, and I use that template to this day. So I think it's a beautiful thing that I'm able to sit here and say that I turned something that was illegal into a legal thing and created an industry behind that. Not only did I have a great show on VH1, but I get paid to sit down, and I'm making legal tender that my mother never in her wildest dreams would have thought that I could provide for my family like I do legally.
What are you proud of about, you said it's 6 parts, and he gave you so much information that you ended up doing a bunch of bonus content. I will tell the audience one more time, CocaineCowboys.com will redirect you to this series, which debuts on Monday.
Michael says, my cousin Junior's in town. He buried my mother in Medellin, and we're like, you got to sit down. So we sat down, the 3 of us, and chopped it up, and it was tense. It was emotional. I was surprised because I think Michael said it pretty clearly, is that like this life sent almost everybody that he knew and loved either to prison, the grave, or both in that order. And Michael was very nearly a victim of that. He was a child when this was going on. And the fact that he escaped that, and of course the richness of the fact that it had something to do with what we did in amplifying 100%. That story is 100%. To me is absolutely fascinating, and to be able to talk with him about that and about our days as enemies on the streets of
South Beach.
South Beach, it just and how life imitating art, imitating life, and that circle, and how the very lifestyle that nearly cost him his freedom and his life also saved him and created a legitimate industry, and he's in the cannabis industry. I love that too, because it's like how many lives have been destroyed over the prohibition of quote unquote drug dealing, and now the Blanco family are drug dealers.
No, I do legal consultation, but my family are legal cannabis, company. My wife owns her company. My cousin owns his company, and yeah, we thrive in the market. By the way, I mean, we all know that Griselda Blanco started with cannabis, right? That's how it all happened. That's how she transitioned, and it's a beautiful thing. Let's hope they take it off forever, or did they already have a Schedule 1? So that's what cannabis has been registered for years. So now, hopefully one day, we can walk into 7-Eleven and people can get medicated correctly.
And hopefully we'll live long enough to see the rest of the country, the Miami of today is the America of tomorrow, and the United States will also legalize cocaine like we have here in Miami.
All right, that's enough. CocaineCowboys.com is the series. It will be debuting on Monday. CocaineCowboys.com is where you go. Excuse me, that's not the series. The series is the real Griselda. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate the time.
Thank you,
I owe you an apology. I think I said Corleone instead of Corleone. $5 fine for me. That is an egregious offense. My apologies. Corleone. How can I say Michael Corleone?